Hello, everyone. Today I will tell you a story. The story is titled, The Grumpy Cats Who Couldn't Go Outside. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you appreciate me. You can skip this if you don't like this video. Thank you very much. The story begins as follows. It was a sunny Saturday morning, and Mrs. Johnson was getting ready for a relaxing day in the garden. The birds were chirping, the flowers were blooming, and the warm breeze made everything feel perfect. But there was one problem. She had to keep her two cats, Muffin and Biscuit, indoors. Muffin and Biscuit were no ordinary cats. They had a reputation for being the most adventurous felines in the neighborhood, always running off to explore the garden, chasing butterflies and climbing trees. But today, Mrs. Johnson had decided it was safer to keep them inside, as the gardeners were coming to prune the hedges. "Sorry, kitties, no outdoor time today," she announced as she opened the kitchen door. Muffin immediately began to whine, her little paws tapping the floor in a rhythmic pattern. Biscuit, on the other hand, gave Mrs. Johnson a look of pure betrayal. His eyes widened in shock, as if he couldn't believe the cruelty of it all. He sauntered over to the window, stood on his hind legs, and tried to peer outside, his tail twitching in annoyance. "Oh no," Mrs. Johnson muttered. "Not again." Muffin meowed loudly, jumping up and down near the door, while Biscuit began pacing in circles like a prisoner in a cage. Mrs. Johnson, not knowing what else to do, offered them a handful of treats. "How about some snacks instead?" she suggested. But Muffin and Biscuit were not interested in food. They both gave her the same cold stare. Muffin turned her back to Mrs. Johnson and flopped down dramatically on the couch. Biscuit, with his tail flicking in irritation, plopped onto the windowsill, his eyes fixed on the garden outside. As the day went on, Muffin and Biscuit's displeasure only grew. Muffin had taken her protest to the next level by completely ignoring Mrs. Johnson. She lay on the couch, her paws crossed, looking like a queen who had been robbed of her royal privileges. Biscuit, however, was more vocal. Every few minutes, he would let out a long, pitiful meow, his face pressed against the window, watching the world outside with longing. "Come on, Biscuit, it's just for today," Mrs. Johnson tried to reason, but Biscuit wasn't having it. He squinted at her with a look of pure disdain, as if to say, "How dare you?" Around lunchtime, Muffin decided to add a little drama to the mix. She jumped up onto the counter, knocked over a vase, and then gave Mrs. Johnson an innocent look as if to say, "That wasn't me." She then proceeded to sit in the middle of the mess, her tail flicking in satisfaction. Biscuit, not to be outdone, took a different approach. He started pacing back and forth, occasionally glancing at Mrs. Johnson as if he were plotting something devious. Finally, he jumped onto the table, knocking over a stack of papers. When Mrs. Johnson turned to clean up the mess, he stared at her with a look of silent rebellion. All right, Mrs. Johnson sighed. "I get it. You're mad." By mid-afternoon, Mrs. Johnson had had enough of the cat's antics. Muffin was now sprawled on the couch, still giving her the cold shoulder, while Biscuit was perched on top of the bookshelf, giving her a glare that could melt steel. Mrs. Johnson, however, had a plan. "I'm going to open the back door for just 5 minutes," she said, grinning mischievously. "But only because I can't handle your dramatic stares anymore." The moment the door clicked open, Muffin was on her paws, darting toward it faster than Mrs. Johnson had ever seen her move. Biscuit followed, but not before giving her one last defiant look, as if saying, "Fine, but I'm doing this on my terms." As soon as they were outside, both cats immediately began rolling around in the grass, stretching their legs and pretending as if they had not just spent hours sulking. They ran in circles, chasing each other and climbing the garden fence, their earlier grumpiness completely forgotten. Mrs. Johnson stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them with a smile. "I swear, you two are impossible," she muttered. But the cats, now back in their element, didn't care. They were too busy enjoying their moment of freedom to even glance back at her. After all, who could stay mad when there were trees to climb and birds to chase?